we are growing out of this incentive, but I think it's vitally important if we're going to talk about incentives for renewables that we look at all of the incentives. We had a bill last session, I think was, it had to do with the PTC. We said, let's look at everything. So we put up a website called Study Them All and just said, let's look at everything. I put a list of subsidies on that website. And it's not that I think that we should be subsidized and others should not. It's that I think that we should be realistic about looking at every incentive. If a taxpayer is picking up the costs that would normally flow to a business, be it transportation, liability, whatever it might be, those are subsidies. They reduce the cost of doing business. So I just ask that we be looking at all of the system, which is a word that I think we've used a lot today. But the wind is a very transparent incentive.
Right, and y'all are great. Don't get me wrong, but would you agree with me though that if we are actually going to start that discussion of, we've been an energy only market, we haven't wanted to pay for steel in the ground, we haven't wanted to be a capacity market, and if we are actually going to have that discussion about how do you build a bigger, more reserve, and where do you build it and all that, you agree with me, we've also kind of got to take into consideration how wind subsidies affect that pricing and the incentive or disincentive it may be to being able to build thermal plants.
I'd want us to look at, we've subsidized coal since before we were a country. I'd want to look at every single energy type and assess. But I agree with you. If we're gonna transform our sector, if we're gonna rethink Texas, let's put everything on the table.